If you're looking to buy a stacked NBA 2K account with max badges and more, visit sportstmb.com. He has been in the community for years and has hundreds of reviews. Click the first link in the description to get your account today.
Trades are probably my favorite thing about the NBA. Crossovers, poster dunks, Isaiah Thomas photoshopped to be even smaller than he really is, Kelly Oubre for reasons. There's just something about it. Maybe it's the logistics of what it means for each team, imagining how players who have never played together would play together. Maybe it's the math of matching the salaries. Actually, nah, math sucks ass. Maybe it's the idea of figuring out a player's value or trying to balance assets on both sides so that both teams get a reasonable package. Whatever it is, I love trades. And while I don't think this year will be the best one for trades, I do think it could be a pretty goddamn good one. There are a handful of star-level players on teams that are leaning towards a rebuild that could move them this season. And God, do I hope they do, because I am really going to need it with how much this offseason is going to suck with Andre Drummond being the top free agent available. I have 5 blockbuster, well, at least 5-star trades here. The word blockbuster means different things to some people, but let's get into them.
Absolutely incredibly with the acrobatic alley-oop.
Alright, quickly before I get into my 5 blockbuster trades, I have 2 that are not quite blockbuster that I wanted to share. The first one I talked about in my last video, so I'll try to keep it brief. The trade is essentially Danilo Gallinari to the Portland Trail Blazers for Kent Bazemore, Nazir Little, and a lottery-protected first-round pick. Gallo is a consistent 17 to 20 point scorer, and Portland needs some more scoring. I think Melo showed last night that he is not going to be the third scorer for Portland, not that I expected any better, and Gallo is mostly a system player when he scores, so he's not going to take shots away and possessions from CJ and Dame. And then for OKC, Little is a rookie that can be a combo forward in the NBA, be a very athletic, defensive-minded wing. If he developed just a league average jump shot, he could be a really solid role player, play some great defense, hit some threes, catch lobs in transition. I think he can be a Jeremy Grant type of player with some more muscle. And then there's also a first-round pick. It is lottery protected in case the Blazers bottom out and don't make the playoffs, which would be a really bad look for them considering they were in the conference finals last year, but they should get that protection. I doubt they'll need it, but protection is always good, kids. Keep that in mind. And for the chance that Gallo just leaves in the offseason, I think he is worth that risk to elevate this Portland team that is really desperate right now. And Bazemore is in the trade to make the money work. He is an expiring deal like Gallo, so he doesn't hurt OKC salary-wise, and he sucked this year, so not much of a loss for Portland. I just realized I did not get through that quick at all, but whatever. The next trade is Taj Gibson to the Celtics for Daniel Tice, Enes Kanter, and either 2 seconds or a Celtics first. Kanter and Tice make $9 million combined, and Taj makes $9 million, so the money works, and the Knicks get some draft assets for Taj, which is what I thought the Knicks' plan was when they signed all the veterans that they did. Apparently they thought they were making the playoffs, which is hilarious, but now the plan should be what it originally should have been, which is to trade the vets they signed for some assets. And Taj is exactly what the Celtics need. Physicality, rebounding, and defense. He is a defensive-minded and great rebounding center. He is a little undersized, but he is the perfect center for this team. And speaking as a Bulls fan, someone who is a huge fan of this guy for multiple years, he is a great locker room presence and energy guy and glue guy. Perfect guy to have on your team. The Knicks are only playing him 16 minutes a game, so clearly they do not care about keeping him, so I think this trade would be mutually beneficial. Now, on to the blockbuster trades. I again have to mention a trade that I mentioned in the last video, this one being another Blazers one, because my last video was on the Blazers, and this time it's Blake Griffin to the Blazers. The trade would be Blake for Zach Collins, Anthony Simons, and Kent Bazemore, maybe a protected first on top of that. If not that, then a a few second rounders. The Blazers get who I have as the 16th best player in the NBA, and having him on their team would pretty much unlock their offense to being the level of unstoppable. For the Pistons, they suck so far, and even if they did turn it around, they were never going to contend, so I think it's best that they trade all of their assets now, with Drummond expiring and Blake getting older and being injury prone. Zach Collins, I think, has a chance to be one of the best role player centers in the NBA, kind of a do-it-all guy, good versatile defender, rebounds at a decent rate, good finisher. He's shown signs of being a solid stretch big. He's also shown some capability as a playmaker, and Simon seems like he can be a scoring combo guard, taking it to the basket, off of the catch and shoot, off of the dribble. He can really score in any way. He ironically really reminds me of CJ McCollum. He's a pretty nice guard to start your rebuild with. The Blazers get a chance to try and build a contender, and the Pistons get some solid young assets to start off their rebuild. Next, we have another Blake Griffin trade, this time going to the Miami Heat. Blake for Kelly Olynyk, James Johnson, 2 second rounders, one of their rookies, probably Kendrick Nunn and Myers Leonard, or just Justice Winslow. I would go with just Winslow because I think Nunn has potential to be a lot better if he isn't better already, and Winslow has been pretty meh to open the year. That being said, I think you have to wait until the deadline to make this move to see who actually ends up being the better player. If Winslow has taken a step forward and Nunn has regressed, then you trade Nunn instead. Whichever one works best, and throw 2 second rounders Detroit's way. This trade allows the Heat to be a legit team in the East. Blake and Jimmy with hero shooting, Goran Dragic as a 6-man, Bam Adebayo being a great all-around big in either Nunn or Winslow. That team is scary. It's also worth mentioning that if they did trade Nunn, they would also need to move Myers Leonard, which would mean they'd have no backup center, and their backup power forward would be Duncan Robinson, who has been good so far, but I don't know that I'm all that confident in him yet. Next, we have Drew Holiday to the Mavericks for Tim Hardaway Jr., Justin Jackson, Jalen Brunson, and a top 10 protected first. Brunson is a solid young point guard, Justin Jackson has some potential as a scoring wing, and then the first is a top 10 protected. I don't think the Pels would take a deal with that pick being lottery protected. The Mavs will probably be hovering around the 8th seed, and you do not want to take that trade if you don't have a pretty high chance of getting that first round pick. For the Mavs, you get a solid scoring guard who, more importantly, is a great defender. He can also function as a secondary playmaker for Doncic. When I made my video a few weeks ago about Luka potentially being a top 10 player in the NBA, I mentioned one flaw in his game, which was his lack of off-ball movement, and most of that was due to the lack of playmakers outside of Luka himself on this Mavs roster. Drew would solve that, and I think that would solidify the Mavericks as a playoff team in the West. And down the line, I pretty much think Drew is a perfect guard next to Luka. The defense, playmaking, and scoring is exactly what Luka needs next to him. The only thing holding him back just a little bit is the fact that he's a mediocre three-point shooter. Bradley Beal to the Bucks for Eric Bledsoe, Ersan Ilyasova, DJ Wilson, Dante DiVincenzo, and a 2020 unprotected first, as well as a 2021 top 20 protected first. And Washington can throw in some of their minimum contract guys to make the deal work. I am of the opinion that the Bucks fucked up by extending Bledsoe, especially for the money that they gave him. He does not fit with Giannis at all, and he doesn't do anything positive in the playoffs. The Bucks get a 20+ point scorer and pretty much a phenomenal fit next to Giannis with how good of a shooter Bradley Beal is. And for the Wizards, just buy out Bledsoe or see if you can potentially get anything for him in a trade. And DJ Wilson as well as DiVincenzo are both decent young guys. DJ is a versatile 4, he can shoot, really athletic, moves like a 3 with the size of a 4, and DiVincenzo has a lot of potential as a shooter. He is currently shooting 42% from 3 on 3.3 attempts, and he lit up my Bulls. Some young guys as well as 2 first rounders for Beal. And last but not least, we have DeMar DeRozan to the Magic for Evan Fournier and Mo Bamba. The Magic needs scoring. Period. DeRozan cannot shoot, but having a guy that you can just give the ball and say, go get me a bucket, and he does, is not a luxury that this Magic team has had in a very long time. DeRozan can provide that luxury. And for the Spurs, I made a whole video on this, but it's rebuild time. Trade the whole damn team outside of White, Murray, and Walker and get rebuilding. And I think as long as Pop sticks around, Mo Bamba could be a great foundation to that rebuild. Mo Bamba has sucked this year, shooting 34% as a center, but he is a very raw player, and the Magic suck ass at player development. Pop and the Spurs are phenomenal at player development. So it would be a match made in heaven. I really think that Mo Bamba can be a Rudy Gobert type of player with some more offensive potential. He has shown signs as a shooter, and he's also a really high character dude, so he would fit great in San Antonio's culture. Anyways, those are my trades. Let me know what your trades are in the comment section below, as opposed to the comment section above. Like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.